On November 13th, 1974, at around 3:15 a.m., 23-year-old Ronald DeFeo used a Marlin rifle to murder his entire family as they slept. His father, Ronald DeFeo Sr., and mother, Louise DeFeo, had both been shot twice. His four siblings, Dawn, Allison, Mark, and John Matthew, were each shot once. All 6 victims were found by police in their beds, lying on their stomachs. It's estimated that the whole thing took a mere 15 minutes from start to finish. 1 year later, the Lutz family moved into the home. The Lutz family were only able to withstand 28 days of what they describe as absolute horror before they were driven to leave the house. The stories they told about the paranormal events they experienced led to the best-selling novel, The Amityville Horror, in 1977. That book sparked 21 Amityville Horror-related movies between the years 1979 and present day. Tonight, we are going to be talking about both the murders and the hauntings that took place at the Amityville Horror House. Ronald DeFeo actually reported the murders himself. He had told local police that when he had arrived home from work that evening, he found that somebody had broken into his house and killed his entire family. When the police interrogated him about this, he said he believed the murderer was Louis Fellini, who was actually a mafia hitman. The investigations actually showed that the murders had taken place in the morning. So at that time, DeFeo had changed up his story a little bit and said that Fellini actually had an accomplice. They had broken into his house the morning of November 13th, put a gun to Ronald DeFeo's head, and forced him to watch them murder his family. This story did not hold up, and DeFeo eventually confessed and was quoted by saying, "Once I started, I just couldn't stop. It happened so fast." DeFeo had a rocky relationship with his father, but the motive for the killings is still unclear. Nobody really knows exactly what led him to pick up this gun and just slaughter his entire family in the middle of the night while they were sleeping. During his trial in November of 1975, DeFeo said that he heard voices telling him to kill his entire family, and that is why he went through with the murders. There was a psychiatrist testifying on the defense, and they had said that DeFeo actually had a dissociative disorder. So this would have meant that during the time of the murders, DeFeo would have experienced it as kind of an outer body experience, almost as if he was watching himself commit those murders instead of experiencing it for himself firsthand. However, the psychiatrist that was testifying on the prosecution said that DeFeo actually had an antisocial disorder and not a dissociative disorder. So this would have meant that DeFeo would have been totally lucid during the time of his murders. The only thing is that he wouldn't have known that what he was doing was right or wrong, but he would have totally been aware that he himself was committing the murders. DeFeo was found guilty of 6 counts of second-degree murder and was sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences. His story has changed a few more times since then, too. According to one interview given in 1986, DeFeo claims that Dawn killed their father, and once his mother found out, she killed Dawn, then killed the rest of the children, then turned the gun on herself. Another change to the story claims that Dawn killed the rest of the family, and then Ronald killed Dawn in self-defense. Ronald DeFeo maintains that his lawyer, William Weber, pressured him to plead insanity at the trials. Regardless of everything, all of his requests for parole have been denied. Now on to the history of the Lutzes. So George and Kathleen Lutz married in July of 1975. Kathleen actually had 3 children from a previous marriage, Daniel, Christopher, and Melissa. So George was their stepfather. A few months after the murder, the Lutzes purchased the home for $80,000, and it reportedly came with the original furniture from the DeFeo family. It's also been said that that furniture was also kept in the same place that it was on the night of the murder. The real estate agent that sold the house to the Lutzes did disclose to them of the murders that took place in the home 13 months prior. After a little bit of discussion, George and Kathleen decided that it wouldn't be an issue. This was their dream house, and they were so ecstatic to get it for such a discounted price. And it was also said that the Lutzes actually had some financial trouble. So for them to get their dream house for only $80,000, they didn't really care about the murders at that time. On December 19th, 1975, the family officially moved in. Now, because of the murders that did take place in the house, they were just a little bit skeptical, so they did decide that it would be a good idea to get the house blessed. Within that first few days of them moving in, Father Pecoraro came by the house while the family was unpacking their belongings to bless the house. So he was upstairs in one of the bedrooms, flicking around holy water and praying to bless the house. And in one of the bedrooms, he reportedly heard a strong male voice scream at him to get out. Father Pecoraro quickly left the home after this experience, and it is said that within the following weeks of him leaving the house, he had a high fever and blisters all over his hands and arms. During the family's short stay at the house, they claimed to have experienced a number of paranormal events. George Lutz would reportedly wake up every morning at 3:15 a.m., which is actually the same time that Ronald DeFeo had murdered his entire family only 13 months prior in that same house. Some sources say that at 3:15 a.m. when he would wake up, he would go out back to the boathouse that was attached to the property and just hang out there, not really doing anything. Other reports say that he would wander around the house, turning on all the burners on the stove, and then go back to bed, leaving them lit. On January 1st, 1976, apparently there were cloven hoof prints left in the freshly laid snow. Kathleen would recurringly have vivid nightmares of the murders, and in these nightmares she was able to discover not only the order that the murders took place, but the rooms that they also took place in. And it's also reported that the Lutz children all started sleeping on their stomachs, which was the same position that the victims' bodies were found by the police. George claims that he saw his wife Kathleen turn into an old 90-year-old woman right before his very eyes. He described her by saying she had long, strangly white hair, a face full of wrinkles and ugly lines, and saliva dripping from her toothless mouth. George and his stepson Daniel both claim that while they were outside one day, they looked up and saw a pig-like creature with red glowing eyes looking down at them from one of the bedroom windows. There have also been multiple stories of different family members levitating off of their beds. By mid-January, George and Kathleen decided they needed to get their house blessed one more time. On this day, they experienced something they describe as too horrific, and they ultimately left the house, leaving behind all of their possessions. The Lutzes declined giving a full account of everything that happened that night because it was just too frightening to relive for them. In an interview in 2005, George is quoted saying, "We didn't get up that morning to leave. You need to understand that. This was our house. We lived there." Not long after the family left, Ed and Lorraine Warren actually visited the house to investigate, and they were the ones that took the infamous Demon Boy photo. It's thought that the Demon Boy in the photo was John Matthew, who was Ronald DeFeo's younger brother, who was only 9 years old when he was murdered that night. During a lawsuit surrounding the case in the late 1970s, Father Pecoraro states in his affidavit that the only contact that he had with the family was through phone contact only. There are other sources that say Father Pecoraro did in fact visit the home, but while he was there, he experienced nothing paranormal. The claim of the cloven hoof prints in the snow on January 1st, 1976 was disproved by researchers because, according to weather records, there was no snow on the ground in Amityville at that date. Neighbors reported nothing unusual during the Lutz's time at the house. That one is very interesting to me because I feel like if all these crazy hauntings and things like that are happening, you're gonna yell, you're gonna scream, make noises, you might run to your neighbor, and ask for help or something. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like for the neighbors to say, nope, nothing happened. I didn't hear anything weird. We didn't see anything weird. You know, nobody came and talked to us. That just is a little bit weird. Also, it has been said that during the 28 days that the Lutzes stayed at that house, they never once called the police. If I was being haunted to that degree, even if I knew 100% sure that it was a haunting and there was nothing the police could do about it, I probably would still call the police. But that's just me. Many people think that the Lutzes' financial struggle may have been a big motive for them to conjure up some spooky story based on murders that had happened at the house only a year prior and sell that story to the press. After sharing their experiences, George and Kathleen Lutz both took lie detector tests and both of them passed. The Lutzes repeatedly deny that their story is a hoax. In 2013, Daniel Lutz, who was only 9 years old at the time that his mother and stepfather moved their family into the home, said in an interview that these stories that they say that they experienced while in the house are 100% true, and he believes that their family experienced these horrors because George, their stepfather, dabbled in the occult. Christopher, who is Daniel's younger brother, said in a different interview that although their story isn't a hoax, the hauntings really did happen, they were greatly exaggerated by George. In 2004, Kathleen Lutz passed away to emphysema. 2 years later, George passed away to heart disease. The pair divorced back in the 1980s, however, they did remain on good terms. The house known as 112 Ocean Avenue still stands to this day. However, it has since been renovated, and one of the previous owners changed the address to 108 Ocean Avenue to deter tourists from visiting the home. It's said that an additional 4 other families lived in the home, and it was most recently sold in 2017 for $600,000. Ronald DeFeo is still alive and is currently serving his 6 consecutive life sentences at Sullivan Correctional Facility in New York. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I really hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the Amityville Horror House. If you like this video, please give it a like and comment down below and let me know what other stories you would like me to research and present to you guys. Also, if this is your first time seeing my face, be sure to subscribe and hit the little bell notification next to my name so that you're notified of all the spooky videos that I upload here on the Spooky Rach channel. I appreciate you guys so much and stay spooky.